Good evening and welcome to the Daylight Experience. I am your girl, Daylight. My name is Monica Day, and I want to invite you to join us for conversations, empowering conversations that, baby, lipstick can't cover up. So, tonight, we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk with my friend, my you still my therapist, I think. Yeah, you can be. Yeah, we're gonna still. She's my therapist friend. She's a social worker, so a businesswoman, and we're gonna talk to her. She's gonna share her story, and she's just gonna help us out in a lot of good ways tonight. So, and we're gonna talk about how domestic violence impacts women, the effects of it, and how do you get past those effects and become a therapist and start to live a life where you are uplifting other sisters. So y'all sit back, get your favorite drink, and let's get into it. So tonight, my friend Chae Gardenhire is here with us. Hey Shay.
Hi, how you doing?
Girl, I'm so excited to see you. It's been a while.
It's been a
Hey, we got to
while.
do a dinner. We got to get together.
Yes, yes, yes. So how you
So
been?
I'm hanging in here. I'm learning and I'm growing. This is daylight experience has been something I've wanted to do for a while. And so I started it, then I had to step back and had to, rethink some things. And so now I think I got a better handle on it and trying to keep it moving. So I'm so excited that you could be here with me this evening. And because now I've known you for what? How many years now? It's been several.
Um,
It's been a good
yeah,
while, but I
and
don't
we
think I've ever heard your story, and so
yeah.
I am so excited to hear your story and talk about how you got from being a victim to
Mm-hmm.
moving to a overcomer,
Mm-hmm.
an empowered queen. So, without further ado,
Yeah.
Shay, please tell us your story.
Okay, okay. Well, I guess it began, to be honest, really around 2005. When I really, really think about it. 2005, I remember entering grad school, and I was with my ex-husband at the time, and um, didn't really think of myself as a victim. Just knew that I was dealing with some backlash from entering grad school. A lot of what I know now was emotional abuse, manipulation,
Right.
things that didn't feel good, words that didn't feel good. I was trying to progress. And, at the time, my three boys, or our three boys, were younger. My youngest, who was actually now 20, can't believe, he was only a year old at the time. And I just remember that it just seemed like as I was progressing, I was being pulled back by him. And so what initially started was verbal things, verbal degradation. A lot of the things that made me feel bad, things that made me second guess me going to school.
Right.
A lot of things that I thought um, was chaotic, but then pushed me. But then at the same time, it felt like it was just a force that was just pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. But I progressed. I kept progressing.
Mhm.
But then I remember 2007 came. So this was 2005 it started, and then 2007 came. And I remember um, having to take a break from something in my life.
Mhm.
And I remember facing, I was a wife, I was a mother, I was working full time, I was in grad school. And I said, I gotta take a break from something. I remember having this conversation with me.
Mhm.
And the only thing, when I went to my doctor, the only thing that I could see myself taking a break from at that time was work. So I
Mhm.
remember talking to my doctor, and she said, look, I can put you on a leave of absence for like 30 days. And I remember going to a therapist at the time. And the thing that I remember having an aha moment about was him. I remember saying to myself, the only thing I keep talking about in these sessions was him.
Isn't
Now
that
get
something?
this. Yeah, now get this. It was not any physical things going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of just turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
But then as I look back, because I still didn't realize, what was really going on.
Right.
But as I look back, it was a lot of mental and emotional turmoil that was going on. And when I started to recognize that he was the source of all of this, I said, he was my issue, right? So I remember October, let me think of the date, October 6th, that was a Saturday. I still remember it, 2007. I remember addressing him and telling him I felt like he was depressed and all of this. And I remember him jumping on me and putting his hands around my throat. And I remember having to push him off of me. And that was the first time that he had hit me.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that day like no other. I casually, pushed him off of me, got myself together. My boys were upstairs. I got myself together to the point where I did not want them to witness any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having scratches on the back of my neck from him grabbing me around my neck.
Right.
And I had my sister to take pictures of it. In my mind, I knew I had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I said, I cannot continue with this. From thinking about the emotional stuff. And mind you, take myself back. About a month before that, I had decided maybe we can do a separation because I didn't want to do a divorce because I had the boys and all of that. So I said, maybe I can do a legal separation. So I had consulted with an attorney at that time for a legal separation to maybe try to work some things out. But this was before the physical thing.
Right. Okay.
And so from that, I said, okay, maybe I can do that. But then when the physical thing happened, I said, no, I got to do something. Mm-hmm. But because I wanted to protect my boys still, got myself together, but I had my sister take pictures, went to church that next day. Went to church that next day. Actually went to New Mercies, I remember.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We keep moving.
Went to church that next day and had already had the plan in my head that I was going to take myself up to Gwinnett County Sheriff Department, had researched that, and file a temporary protective order. Because I knew that I needed to do it peacefully for the sake of my children.
Right.
But also kind of calculated because I didn't want it to get messy because I didn't know how he would react. Right. Mm-hmm. So went to church that Sunday and happily took my boys to school that Monday morning and drove over to Gwinnett County Sheriff Department that Monday morning with those pictures in hand. And took those pictures over there and filed a temporary protective order. And that was Monday, October 8th. And that was the last time we lived together.
Wow. And
when I took those pictures over there, I remember the judge had me to write up a statement and everything. And when I wrote the statement up and, shared with her, what had happened and everything, that was the last time we lived together. A week later, we had a hearing. And because of the whole, potential strangulation and all of that, they were very concerned about that. That was the last time we lived together. And from that date is when I decided that we were going to have to divorce.
Right.
But strangely enough, when we had the hearing, he thought that we were going to be able to reconcile. Yeah. So it went from...
So he came with his best behavior.
Which was really, really interesting. But from that incident, when I thought back, it was a lot of buildup to that. It was a lot of emotional stuff. When I say emotional stuff, I mean a lot of infidelity, a lot of manipulation, a lot of things said. One of the biggest things that I remember that was said was when I was in grad school is, you're supposed to be a family therapist, but you can't even keep your own family together.
Wow.
Now, I wasn't even a family therapist. I was in school. Now, I can't keep my own family together because I'm supposed to be a family therapist.
Right.
But he was the one that was acting up, so to speak.
Right. Right.
But as I look back, what I really do believe um, about him, of course, I can't diagnose
Right. Right.
him, but
Right.
I do believe that he had a lot of narcissistic traits.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that that's what it was at the time, but as I look back now, that's definitely what it was. I was gaslit. I was
Mm-hmm.
his supply.
Yeah.
I was emotionally manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely there was the abuse there.
Right.
It was
Right.
so much that went on. And as I even think back, even before that 2005 time, there was a lot of things that went on that just broke me down,
Yeah.
broke me
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So I dealt with a lot of self-esteem issues and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yep.
Right. Right. So, and it's interesting that a lot of similarities in our
Hmm.
stories. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
although they're very different, it was a lot of
Hmm.
similarities, and um,
Hmm.
it's just amazing to me. But I did a post this week on social media because I read. I can't think of this coach's name, but I know her initials are EB,
Okay.
and she posted something that said that once you catch a narcissist cheating, they'll never trust you anymore.
Yeah.
And
They
in
turn
that
it.
moment, I couldn't stop laughing, because I was like, oh my God, like how true is that?
Yeah.
Because I can remember, catching my ex, but it was always my fault.
It was your fault.
It was always my fault. No, how does that work? That it's my
Yeah.
fault,
Yeah.
but you got caught cheating. Like,
Yeah.
so that was
Their
interesting.
ego is this big and this
Girl,
fragile, and when they're
yes.
exposed, they can't take it, the insult,
Mm,
or they can't take it because of the fragility of their ego.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they have to do something to project it on someone else so that they
right,
won't have to face it. Yeah,
right,
it is
right.
the most bizarre. It's very intriguing to me.
It
Um,
is.
I don't have I don't have the sympathy or empathy at all for a narcissist because they are so damaging to
Mm-hmm.
others.
Yeah, yeah.
It's such a damaging but I love helping to expose them
Mm-hmm.
because they are so damaging to innocent people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it but
yeah.
it's so what is the word I want to use? It's so refreshing once you recognize that you are not crazy,
Right.
that you are
Oh
not
my
the
God.
one to blame, that
Yes.
you are not like, once I recognize, like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not this, right? Oh,
Right.
I'm not crazy. Okay, now I understand why I was feeling this way.
Right.
And I've dealt with so many women, Monica, that I've help them to understand that they were being emotionally manipulated. Or when we're in therapy sessions, I'm like, when they tell me something that this gentleman has said, I'm like, emotional manipulation. And they
Mm-hmm.
would tell me that what he said, that is this, and they go,
Right.
oh
Right.
my gosh. And I'm
Right.
like, I know it now. I can call it out, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so freeing to be able to recognize it
I
now.
remember um when I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting in the room with you and we were talking about it. And I was crying because I was like, so now I got to deal with this. He gets to go on with his life and move on and continue to do what he's doing. But now, am I crazy? You know what I'm saying? And that was a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you helped me through that because you made me recognize that you're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You helped me understand that, you know, what I had been through had caused
Mm-hmm.
me
Yeah.
to react to things in a
Yeah.
different way, or be hyper vigilant, or and
Right.
so the trauma from it all,
Yes.
um, and so it was just it took a while. Even after we had that conversation, I think I probably cried some more after that day. but
And I welcome tears, so it's
but
okay.
no,
And I
but
always,
in retrospect,
yeah.
I just like, wow,
And look,
that
Monica, I
was
always say, we're not going to give them this remote control to your life.
Girl.
We are not going to give them this at all. You're
Hey,
going to look, you're going to
right,
take this remote
absolutely.
control
'Cause
back.
hey, I'm gonna
Yes.
change the channel. You don't get to change
Exactly.
the channel. So right, exactly.
Absolutely.
So now, okay, I want to know your counseling.
Mm-hmm.
You survived. So did counseling other women, was that therapeutic for you?
Well, you know what? Let me tell you this. And this is, so there were two reasons why, I knew I had to get out of that. And this is something I first of all, I was very ashamed. Like, this is very empowering for me to be talking to you about this, and eventually this being released to the masses for your audience to see this, right?
Right.
I was very ashamed to even talk about this. I think this is probably maybe year 2 or 3, and this happened 2005, and I divorced in 2008. Because I was ashamed because I didn't come from a household like that, right? 2-parent household, just like you, 2-parent household, parents, together until my father passed, right? It just wasn't what I was used to.
Right.
And not that I felt like it was my fault or anything, but in a sense, I felt like, okay, what was wrong with me that I allowed this?
You felt like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us women feel that way, especially when we come from a 2-parent home. Our parents are together forever.
Yeah,
and we are facing divorce.
Yeah.
And
allowing this
some kind of way.
Yeah, exactly. And allowing this. And so what was my saving grace was, for one thing, I was in grad school, didn't know that I was going to be this therapist, knew I wanted to be, but didn't know I was going to be this therapist in this way. But I remember thinking, I know that I'm going to one day be counseling women, potentially.
Right.
I can't be sitting here counseling women and going home to this.
Right. Exactly.
That's hypocritical. That's not who I am. So I can't do that. I don't want to be a fraud, a lie. That was one thing. But the bigger thing was, too, I got 3 boys that need me to be sane for them.
Right.
They already got one parent that ain't got it together. Right. They can't have 2 parents that can't have it together. I cannot fail them in that way. So those were my 2 reasons. And I kid you not, those were my 2 reasons that I thought about back when I was 33 to 35 years old, going through this. And that brought me through. And I gave that testimony. I did a presentation at church last year. And I told those women the same thing. I said, you are the reasons why I came through this, and my boys. Okay. Those are the 2 reasons. Yeah. And so that was my calling to be here doing this today.
Wow. Yeah. So as you sit in sessions with women, what goes through your mind, or what feelings rise up in you as you hear their stories?
Am I triggered?
Yeah, are you really?
I'm not triggered to the point where I'm like their client and they become my therapist. I'm not triggered to that point. But what I am a therapist that I don't mind. Like, they teach us in school they have taught us in school to be careful with sharing too much about us. Right. So I am careful in that way because I don't want my client to ever feel like they have to be my therapist. Right. No. Right. But I am very much a therapist that shares, because I always tell my clients this: I am not a robot. I am a person. I have had this go on, but I share when it is appropriate. I share with my clients when it's appropriate. So if I have something that's going to be beneficial for the client, I share. And so there have been clients that I work with that have similar situations that I may share. Like when I work with couples and there is something that, I can share that's relating to their marriage situation, I share. Right. When I have women that I work with and they have had emotional abusive situation, I will
Mhm.
share.
Okay.
And when I share, it usually is a sharing situation that talks about when I did have low self esteem and things that happened
Mhm.
that I did that helped to overcome.
Right.
Or if
Right.
there was a particular resource that I used, those kind of things.
Okay.
So yeah, so that is what I do.
Mhm.
But the triggering part, fortunately, I'm not triggered to the point where I'm like, losing it or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I want to take a minute at this
Okay.
time to just pause for
Mm-hmm.
just a few minutes to for a moment of silence. If you're listening or watching this podcast, I'm going to ask that if you have a loved one that has been taken from you due to gun violence or domestic violence, just to say her name.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want to remember our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, our cousins, even that we have lost or has been taken from us due to these horrendous crimes. So, just a few minutes, please.
I have one. One of my um, church members, dear sister of mine, Sheila Franks, that I grew up with in church, was taken far too soon a few years ago for domestic violence.
Mm. As I do this work, um, I try to, with now that I'm doing the daylight experience, I try to mention and bring to light stories of domestic violence and gun violence, but especially domestic violence because I'm a survivor. And I know that domestic violence does not get the attention that it needs. And so I started a web page or a website, Glowing Moments, just for people to share their stories and share anything that they remember about a loved one or something that makes them smile, a cherished memory of someone that was taken from them. Um, I started out with a memorial page on Facebook. It got really heavy, reading these stories about the lives taken day in and day out. And so I had to step back from it. But then I said, but this is needed because I don't think people really realize actually how many women are
Mm-hmm.
taken from us daily
Mm-hmm.
as a result of domestic violence and gun violence, and domestic violence and gun violence intersect
Mm-hmm.
because now people not just they don't just beat you up no more. They got to shoot you, because they think
Mm-hmm.
that makes them the bigger and the badder person. So, um, so I would have been remiss to continue this work and not also address gun violence. And so, um, but it is very I really had to learn self-care. I really had to learn how to say, okay, it's okay for me to take a step back and take a minute,
Mm-hmm.
to protect me because it's heavy work. It really is.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
okay, as a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
what would be some signs that you would tell women and young ladies to look out for signs of domestic violence in a relationship?
Um, I would say definitely if someone exhibits erratic behavior, if someone seems to be um, abrasive in their tones, if someone seems to be controlling, if they try to isolate them from others, friends, family members, try to tell them what to wear, what not to wear. um, not wanting them to hang out with friends, trying to tell them what jobs to have. They don't want them working. That's one of the biggest things. Control is really, really one of the bigger factors.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I really see. And then, of course, if they get to be physical with them,
Mm-hmm.
it is all about control. It really is. Because once you start to manipulate someone mentally,
Mm-hmm.
then you can have them, follow you any other way. And it gets to a point where they become afraid, that person becomes afraid of you. And when that person becomes afraid of you, you get to have them to control you in any way possible.
Right.
Financially, you're controlling them. Medically, you're controlling them. Sexually, you're controlling them. So that's the biggest thing.
Right.
If you find yourself being afraid of someone that you're supposed to be in, that's supposed to be loving towards you, if you find yourself not being able to be in a partnership with this person, and you're supposed to be, this is supposed to be your intimate partner, then you're in a dangerous situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I know that I was one of the fortunate women because I had a family home to come to when I made up my mind to leave. And I know that's not always the case for many women. So what are some of the challenges that you have heard or run across that survivors are experiencing when they're looking or have made up their mind to leave an abusive situation?
One of the biggest things, especially for women who are dependent upon the man for finances, a lot of times they're not able to leave because they don't have the resources to do so. But there are safe houses. There are safe organizations where you're able to do so. There is the Partnership for Domestic Violence. I do remember when I did have that hearing, that there was an advocate that sat with us that I was able to talk with if I needed it. Fortunately, I had the resources at the time that I was able to tap into. I worked and things like that. But there is the Partnership for Domestic Violence. There are safe houses that you could look into. There are churches that you can contact. There are social work agencies now that and the thing about today, 2024 versus back then, there's the internet. Yes. There's the internet. You can a woman could even show up at a police station or a firehouse now if she feels in danger. So those are things that you could do.
And that definitely was not true when I was in my situation because, and even though I was in a small town, but I remember we had a big episode, a big blow up. And I drove off, but I knew that if I didn't get to safety, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. So I drove to the police station, got out, ran in. They stopped me at the door and turned me around and sent me back out. Now, officer, and I remember saying, he's going to kill me. And I remember the officer came outside and they took him aside. I don't know what he told them. But I was like, I said, I just want to go to the house and get my stuff. I just, so they called somebody, the guy, two officers came, one stood outside, one came in the house. I just went in and got some clothes for me and my girls. And of course he was drunk and you were drunk driving. They didn't give him no DUI. They didn't do none of that. And so, but I went and I stayed with my aunt. I think I stayed there for about a week or so. And, but of course my girls was in school and we need to go home so that we could get back to our routine and everything. But I remember going back but He thought it was funny because I came back. It was for him, it was a funny
Right.
situation. Like, okay, well, she didn't go nowhere, she's back
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very disheartening
Yeah.
to run
Yeah.
into a police station and then they turn you around and send you back out the door.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
There's 911 now. You do have 911, unlike
Mhm.
back, years ago. So there
Right.
are definitely, phone numbers that could be contacted as well.
Right.
So I'll definitely say reach out to those emergency services.
Mhm.
But there are safe houses, there are organizations, there's the Partnership for Domestic Violence. So make those contacts. Contacts. They do have. When I say the safe houses, they do have the women's shelters now. That's what I
Right.
was trying to think of. Women's and children's shelters now as
Right.
well.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
So not everybody has a strong support system
Absolutely.
or a family to stand with them or be there for them. So
Hmm.
what are your recommendations for a survivor or a sister that's in a situation and doesn't really have a support system in place?
One of the things that I would say is if they're able to seek medical support,
Mhm.
if they're able to um, obtain support from their medical professional, their primary doctor,
Mhm.
if they're able to seek therapeutic support, finding a therapist. You have so many different therapy programs these days. If they are working, they can go through their employee assistance program. If they don't know how to tap into that, if
Mhm.
they work for a company that has an HR department, every HR department, if it's a pretty decent sized company, typically has through their benefits an employee assistance program that offers behavioral health support, that
Mhm.
typically has company paid therapy sessions, typically three or more benefits. I mean,
Right.
three or more sessions you can get
Right.
with those benefits.
I remember when I started with you, I did that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. The
Mhm.
most I've seen with some companies pay up to 12 sessions. Yeah. And if you do have health insurance, you can continue your benefit through the health insurance companies.
Right. Right.
But I definitely would say medical professionals, get a therapist. If you don't have these support, sometimes you may have friends that are willing to assist.
Right.
If you have extended family support,
Mhm.
but definitely you can check into the Partnership for Domestic Violence.
Mhm.
Sometimes they have sponsors that are willing to help
Right.
as well. That they
Right.
will link you up with sponsors that would be willing to help. And there was an organization, and I don't know if they still have this, Monica. It used to be called, was it Debbie's House or Do you remember that? And that may have been particular to certain cities.
Okay.
But there are other organizations that, I'll look up some different resources
Okay.
that you could put onto your website as well. But they do have certain organizations that may be particular to certain cities
Mhm.
that are in addition to the Partnership for Domestic Violence, which is a national
Right.
organization as
Right.
well.
Right. Right.
But I would definitely say medical professionals, social work organizations, even the community health departments. Every city and state has a local community health department,
Okay.
but they do have social workers on site as well.
Okay.
They can
Okay.
tap into. Exactly. So those are all resources that can help individuals that are going through those things.
Okay.
But in
And when
addition, oh, go ahead.
we get those resources together, I'll share them on all my social media sites as well.
Okay. So I'll pull those together. Give me a few days, but I can
Okay.
pull those together as well because I definitely want you
Absolutely.
to have those. Um,
Absolutely.
because you're going to be on social media, I want to make sure that I do get things that are going to be national and just
Right.
not specific to, since we are in Georgia, just
Right.
not
Right.
specific to Georgia as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk about strategies for healing.
Okay.
I know that therapy is
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. I think everybody should have a therapist. Like
Absolutely.
everybody, regardless as to whether you're dealing with domestic violence or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to have someone to talk to that's
Mm-hmm.
not, who's gonna be fair and not judge you for what you're dealing with, what you've gone through,
Mm-hmm.
what you've experienced. So
Yeah, somebody unbiased.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So share with us maybe some therapeutic techniques, some
Okay.
self-care practices, or just even some ways that women can find strength
Okay.
to get to
Okay.
where to be a survivor, to be an overcomer.
One of the things that I would encourage women to do, when you have dealt with um, domestic violence, you have experienced trauma on some level, right? Your trauma, Monica, is not my trauma, right? We've gone through it differently. We've handled it differently.
Right.
What you've experienced, have been more traumatized than me, depending on where you were in life, where I was in life, right?
Right.
But one of the things that I would say is find your trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapist.
Okay.
That's one therapeutic approach. Another one is, find you a therapist that would do narrative therapy. That's someone that may say, and I think we worked on some of this, where that therapist may say, let's talk about from elementary time. Let's talk about from when you were in middle school. Let's talk about from when you were in high school.
Right.
And what that therapist does is break down those different time periods and kind of go through that and kind of help you break that down and process that time.
Right.
Another one is mindfulness-based stress reduction. That helps you to work on meditation and learning how to meditate, to be able to learn some relaxation techniques. Another one that's very supportive is group therapy, group and support group therapy. It helps you to work with other women that have had shared experiences. And then another one that I found healthy when I was doing my research, and I never even thought about this until I started doing some research on this, grief counseling.
Really?
I never thought of this. Grief counseling, because when you think about it, your marriage is a loss. Your self-esteem is a loss.
That's true.
That's true. Yep. You have to rebuild your self-esteem and your confidence.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes, don't I know that?
Yes. And I never thought about that. So you're having to rebuild that. So you can actually do some sort of grief counseling to even talk about what you lost in that trauma.
Right.
So that's another way. Now, you may not do grief counseling as a group, because if you do it as a typical grief counseling group, you're going to be talking with people who are talking about the actual grief of losing loved ones.
Exactly.
So you may do it one-to-one with a therapist.
Right.
And talk about the actual grief of losing, the self-esteem, the relationship, that kind of thing. Okay.
Exactly.
But when you're planning, I want to mention this before I go into self-care practices.
Okay.
When you're planning and making these plans, plan for your safety. Just like I was expressing to you when I had that incident to occur Saturday, October the 7th. I knew I had to be very meticulous as to how I did things. I went to church. And then I knew my plan was to go.
Because they're watching. So if you do something out of character or something different, they're going to notice.
Yep. And I had to play the part. So I'm going to kind of chuckle with this, and I can chuckle now, right? I can chuckle now.
Right.
I'm going to chuckle with this because I was watching a movie last night, and I remember watching this movie, and the girl had tied him up, and she was crazy, and she had tied him up, and he was saying, "You just crazy, blah, 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 blah." You don't tell somebody who got you tied up that they're crazy.
How about that?
You play the part, you tell them you love them, you do all this stuff so you can get yourself free. So what I was doing was, I was the smart person in the movie. I played the part.
That's right.
I had just been in that situation, and I knew that I needed to play the part on that Sunday. We went to church. We went to Red Lobster and had dinner. But I
Mhm.
knew I was going to take my tail up to Gwinnett County Sheriff Department and do a
Right.
TPO.
Right.
I got up that morning, I got dressed, I took my kids to school, but I knew where my ultimate was going that morning.
Right. Right.
And guess where I went right after that? I was in school doing my internship. I went right over to my internship when I knew Gwinnett County was headed over to my house to go pick him up.
That's right. That's right.
My routine didn't change.
Right. Right.
So I played the part, but I was planning my safety.
That's right. That's right. And I
Yeah.
had to do this similarly. Um, he was out drinking, doing what he does
Mm-hmm.
on that Saturday, and I had packed bags,
Mm-hmm.
and we hit him up in the backyard,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he
You didn't have
came
no big
in.
scene or nothing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. We
Mm-hmm.
and he came in, and I was smart enough to know I'm a pack me a bag, but I can't have it in my room,
Yep.
you know. And
Yeah.
so he came in. I had already had all day to practice my plan with the girls, what we were gonna do, how I was gonna get the car out the driveway without him hearing it. I had all this worked out. And so he came in.
Mm-hmm.
Girls about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, he was gonna take a shower. And I said, "Are you hungry? You want me to fix you something to eat?"
You played
He
the
said,
part.
he said, "Yeah." So he went and got in the shower now. And I put a plate in the microwave, you know. I went in the bathroom, I got all the clothes, I got all the towels, everything out the bathroom. And I had the girls go out the side door. I said, "Get in the back seat of that car and lay down on the floor. Do not close the car doors." Because there's a window in that bathroom, and I knew if he heard those car doors, he was gonna be like, "What's going on out there?" You know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was in that shower. I went and got in the car. I turned the key a little bit. I had Jennifer put the car in neutral, and girl, I pushed the car out the driveway. And then I let it roll down the street.
And then
And when we got to the stop sign, I started the car and we drove off. And so of course it was like by that time it was probably 4 o'clock in the morning. I went to my cousin's house. Her boyfriend, I said, "I gotta hide my car. I can't leave it in the driveway." Girl, if I had to go back, I couldn't. And if he wanted to leave me and lose me, he could have. Because he took me way out in the country. We parked my car in somebody's yard in the back of their house. And then we got up early the next morning. But my cousin's phone rang off the hook all night. And we knew it was him. And so
if
of
you
course, that
plan your
time of the
safety.
morning, he
Yeah.
couldn't wait. He couldn't get nobody to come get him to bring him over there to find out if I was there or not. And by the time I knew, I said, "Oh, he probably trying to call somebody, get them to bring him over here." Her boyfriend took me to get my car, and I left from there and got on the road and came back to Atlanta.
You planned your safety. That's
I
what I'm
did.
saying.
I
That's
did.
it.
I planned
That's
it
it.
out.
That's
And
it. Yeah.
and I can laugh about it now,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, hiding
Mhm.
clothes in the bushes in the yard,
I'm
that
telling
kind
you.
of stuff.
Yeah.
But and I didn't read that anywhere. Nobody told me to do that.
Right.
That's
Right.
just because I knew I had to do that
You had to
because
do
of
it.
him.
Yeah.
That was the only way I was gonna be able to get away.
You didn't
So
want to. You didn't want to act on emotion, and so that's one of the things. So you plan your safety. The next thing is you plan your self care. So
yeah,
when you have to take care of yourself, you plan your self care. If you need to, take some time for you. If you need to go get your hair and nails done. If you need to, decide that you're gonna relax and do a movie and do this and do that, plan it for yourself. If you need to plan your support system,
yeah,
think about who your starting five are. Who is there going to be? Who's going to be to support you? Who's going to be there to encourage you? Who's going to be there that's going to be your fun person? Who's going to be there to be the person that's going to have your back when you need that safety net? Who's
exactly.
that person that's going to be there to push you?
Mm-hmm.
That's your starting five. Your faith practice. Plan
Mm-hmm.
that. What's going
Yeah,
to be your faith practice? Your church schedule, your prayer schedule, your spiritual partner.
Yeah.
Playing your boundaries. How are your boundaries going to be set up?
Yeah.
Who you going to say no to?
Right.
What's going to be your conveniences, your
Because you gotta
inconvenience?
have boundaries, or
You
you
gotta
end
have
up
them
back
boundaries.
in the same thing you just came out
Absolutely.
of. Yeah.
Absolutely. You got to have your boundaries. Absolutely.
Right.
And then your professional support. Plan that. Who is going to be your professional support?
Right.
Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
those are the things that I say definitely makes your plans for. And then your next thing here, self-care practices.
Mhm.
There are five things for self-care. Emotional self-care, mental self-care, physical self-care, spiritual, and social self-care.
Yeah.
Okay? When you're planning those things, emotionally, you want to make sure that you have your journal, write your thoughts down. You want to have mental self-care, meditation or affirmations,
Yes.
physical, exercise, healthy eating and sleeping patterns. When you have your, hold on, make sure because I have my notes here.
Mm-hmm.
When you have your spiritual self-care, you want to have your meditation and prayer, your spiritual prayer partner,
Yes.
practicing gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I also say, social self-care. A lot of times we don't think about that. Social self-care could be nurturing relationships with yourself. That can be your self-time.
Yeah, get back
Um,
to things that you enjoy doing that you stopped
true,
doing while you were in that relationship. And that was a big
absolutely.
one for me.
hmm One of the things that I enjoy is I enjoy just time to myself. What I've been doing in my neighborhood is just taking a morning walk,
Mm-hmm.
just reflecting, taking a morning walk with myself by myself.
Right, right,
Just a nature walk. But
right,
even just having a simple lunch with friends sometimes.
right,
It
right,
doesn't have to be anything you do very often. Maybe if you do
right,
it once a
right,
month.
right,
hmm
right.
So just those kind of things. And then rest and relaxation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, planning nothing time. That's something
That's
that I've often talked to my clients about. I don't know if I did that with you, Monica, but something I've often taught my clients here recently is that when you are planning a routine, often plan nothing time. And that is time to do absolutely nothing. Because we always plan, we got to clean, we got to do this, we got to do
yeah.
this. Everything is on the calendar, but we don't
That's true.
have time for nothing.
That's right. That's
Nothing
right.
time.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we give us some healing work.
Okay.
Give us a homework assignment, something that leave us with a nugget that we can take with us and we can implement into our lives.
Okay. So I think the biggest thing is that scheduling ourselves some type of routine.
Mhm.
When we leave, so this is August. We're entering into the fall. When we're entering into the fall, we want to enter into to being able to manifest something.
Okay.
Okay. We're ending the summer. We're entering into almost the end of the year, if you want to say that.
Okay.
What is it that you can do differently for yourself?
Okay.
Do you want to do you want to find a new hobby?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to build your spiritual wealth?
Right.
Do you want to begin new health habits?
Right.
Do you want to, read more? Do you want to try to build your physical health? Create yourself some type of routine and some type of pattern that you will begin to stick with.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll tell you what I want to do. Something that I'm doing. I am trying to begin traveling. I shouldn't say traveling more, but I am trying to travel at least one more time a year.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm traveling at least 3 times a year. I've been doing twice a year. I've been doing once in the spring and I've been doing once in the fall. So I'm adding one more time, and
Okay.
that's the summertime.
Okay.
So I've been doing, and I'm actually bumping it up to one more thing. I've been doing, I've done cruise and I've done beach. The
Okay.
next thing is resort, like an international type trip.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the next thing. So we're actually doing a spring trip. So I'm kind of pushing myself to do something and do a new experience.
Okay.
So that's my new thing.
Okay. Okay.
So I want you to start thinking about what is it that you can do to kind of push yourself. What is a
Right.
new thing? Is it
Right.
going to be a new experience, a new travel? Is it going to be a new hobby? Do you want to create, more physical wealth? Do you want to do something more spiritual?
Mm,
So think about something that you can do for yourself. I'm all about self-care.
okay. Yeah. So
What?
I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I want to develop or start doing is I've started meditating, and so, but I want to take it a step further. I want to maybe start going to some of these retreats
Ooh, yeah.
where they meditate.
Mhm.
I'm even interested and open to yoga. So I, yeah. So that's something that I'm looking at doing and looking at implementing into my life. So yeah.
I can connect you with someone that I know that does yoga retreats.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually have someone. I actually did, and I haven't done it in a while. I went to one of her yoga retreats that was here in what was it? Uh, part of Georgia. I can't remember the name of it, but it was right outside of Alpharetta.
Okay.
But it was a wonderful yoga retreat, kind of like
Okay.
in the mountainous area. But yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So I'll connect you with her as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
inviting
Thank
me.
you. My friend, my therapist, my sister, I appreciate you for dropping in and being a part of this episode. You have given us a lot of nuggets to sleep on, to sit with, to think about and reflect on.
Mhm.
And I am I'm elated to
Mhm.
have been able to hear your story and see where you came from and where you are now. I
Yeah.
thank God that you were a part of my journey, and had it not been for you, I
Yeah.
think I don't even know, because I have to tell you, you made a shift on your girl. And then I had to, kind of like, okay, so now I got to see somebody else. Like, okay, Shay, you tripping, but okay. And
But
then
look where you are.
and it was never the same. Like, and I think I met with three other people since then. And yeah, and I was just like, yeah, this not working for me.
Mhm.
But I'm determined that I'm going to find somebody, because that's important. I think I do need to talk to somebody. I'm not going through anything,
Okay.
nothing major, but I just think it's important for, because if I'm a coach and I'm going to talk to women and minister to women through
Yeah.
this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I got to have somebody to talk to.
I may have some recommendations for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Okay.
Please, Shay, tell them where they can find you if somebody wants to
Okay.
reach out to you.
Absolutely. It's interesting you say that because I did have a wait list, but I've just lifted the wait list.
Okay.
I am actually on Psychology Today under, what am I under? Oh gosh, Chae Gardenhire.
Okay. Well, see,
Under,
that's how y'all know she good, because she had a wait list, y'all. That's my girl, Shay.
yes. So I'm actually open back up. So you can
Okay.
go under psychologytoday.com and it's under Chae Gardenhire, CHAE, Garden Hire, like a garden and you hire someone. Um, and then if you want to, Monica, you can even put me on your Daylight site if you want to.
Oh,
That's
I
fine
absolutely
as
will.
well. Yep,
I
you can do
absolutely,
that.
because you're our resident therapist. So I will do
Yep,
that.
that
Yes.
is fine too. And yeah, put me on there and I will, if I'm full, I do have a host of colleagues that I do make referrals to
Mhm.
that are just as wonderful. I have probably about 6 or 7 other colleagues that look and think like me.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I do have those as well. And I actually have another colleague that actually that I just love dearly that I actually did another podcast with. She is a hypnotherapist.
Oh,
and she is a trauma therapist as well.
oh,
Mm.
that's good
And
stuff.
she also is out of Alpharetta, Georgia. She has a practice that she does virtual, but she's also in person
Okay.
as well. So,
Okay. All
so,
right. Well,
all righty.
thank you again. Thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
Um, if you're trying to leave, or if you think you're in an abusive situation, Chae has shared with us some red flags, for you to look out for. Calling you out your name, just being controlling, telling you what to wear, how to wear your hair, all of these things. Just if you're not comfortable in
Absolutely.
that relationship, then you might need to just start looking at whether you really are supposed to be there or not. And so,
Absolutely.
but plan your exit. We can't, there's no guarantee for your safety, but we want you to leave as safely as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, again, thank you for tuning in. This has been the Daylight Experience, and I am your girl, Monica Day. Thank you.
Thank you.